Okay, so before we look at how to split a monolithic database across a microservices architecture, let's quickly define what a monolithic database is. And as the name suggests, a monolithic database is a large database featuring many tables, and it's probably a database which has grown large over time, with many applications and services accessing it in order to share data. The ability to share data from one big pot is a nice feature, but for microservices architecture, monolithic databases should be avoided. And this is because one of the advantages of using microservices architecture is that you can independently change each component within the architecture. And if a component relies on a shared monolithic database shared with other applications and services, this will not be the case. Another key advantage microservices architecture brings to the table is the fact that you can take each component and deploy it independently without bringing risk to the rest of the system. And again, when using a shared monolithic database, we lose this advantage. Each time you deploy your service or your API, you might potentially bring a change to a database which is shared by other parts of your system. And not being able to independently change and deploy components because of a shared monolithic database means your system is tightly coupled. Scaling out parts of the data which are required to increase performance is also difficult with a monolithic database. And this is because each time you want to improve performance in that one data area, you are forced to scale out the entire large database. And because it might not be cost effective to scale out a large database because of the storage requirements it has, your overall database, your monolithic database, might end up becoming a performance bottleneck because you don't have the ability to scale out parts of the data that do need the extra performance boost. And these are the reasons why we should avoid a monolithic database, and we should instead try and split existing monolithic databases across our microservices architecture by ensuring each microservice actually has its own database if a database is required. And that database for the microservice should have the same scope as the microservice, i.e., it only should contain data that's relevant to that microservice. It should be a micro database for the microservice. And in this module, we will look at the challenges we need to address when we are in a situation where our database is actually split across the architecture as mini databases per microservice. And we will also look at the approach in order to create a micro database so that it stays within the scope of the microservice. We will also look at an approach that can be taken in order to take an existing monolithic database and then gradually split it across our microservices architecture using a stepped approach.